I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. D'Esposito, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here this morning, or now this afternoon. Have you read HR2?
Congressman, it's been a while since I have, but I certainly reviewed the legislation.
Okay, and were there any parts of HR2 that you agreed with?
Congressman, I'd have to review it again.
It was the most comprehensive border security bill that has been passed out of the House of Representatives in decades. You're the Secretary of Homeland Security. You're not certain or sure of any of the items in that legislation that you would agree with?
Congressman, let me assure you that I support the Senate's bipartisan legislation.
I'm not asking about the Senate's bipartisan legislation. I'm asking about HR2, the only piece of border security legislation that has been passed through the House of Representatives. We continue to talk about this bipartisan legislation, this magical legislation that has yet to make it out of the Senate, that doesn't have the support to make it out of that. But we still have the administration, the Secretary of Homeland Security telling us that we should support legislation that can't get passed. You don't remember any parts of HR2 that you support?
That is, Congressman, I can share with you some of the grave infirmities of HR2.
I'm asking for the parts that you support, because my point is that back in May, House Republicans out of this committee passed HR2, the Secure the Border Act. We sent it over to the Senate. That should have begun the negotiation. That should have been the starting point to secure our border. I've heard colleagues on the other side of the aisle say that people in America are, quote, freaking out, that there's chaos. Yes, people are freaking out. Yes, there is chaos, because Joe Biden and the Homeland Security has left our borders wide open. That's why people are freaking out. And there is a solution. It was HR2. Do I agree with everything in there? Absolutely not. I would assume you don't agree with a lot of things in there either. Democrats didn't agree with things in there, but you know what it was? It's the only piece of legislation that we actually have. It's the perfect starting point. So to my colleagues on the other side who are talking about this magical piece of legislation, we have it. It's HR2. So let's start there. Now I'm going to take it back home. So time after time, this committee has listened to the devastating impact that the border crisis has, of course, because of the policies that have been implemented by you and President Biden. You have helped make every state a border state, every county a border county, and every city a border city, including my home in New York. Now, a Democrat mayor, who I don't agree with on everything, but I agree with him on this. He said that, quote, "This issue will destroy New York City." Now, I'm proud to have served in the NYPD as a detective, and it has been absolutely devastating to see the horrific challenges that law enforcement are faced with throughout this country. I mean, just recently, we saw NYPD cops who were attacked by illegal migrants who just got done robbing a Target. Months ago, we saw NYPD officers brutally attacked in Midtown Manhattan. They actually were our guests at the State of the Union by illegal migrants. We saw in the Bronx recently where there was a 911 call made for a person with a gun. When cops made their way into this home into the Bronx, it was illegal migrants who had squatted there illegally and had illegal guns and illegal narcotics. Then just days after, in my district, in Roosevelt Field Mall, there were two migrants who committed larceny in a store, were arrested by the Nassau County Police Department, and guess what the address was that they gave? That home in the Bronx where the guns and the narcotics were found. So I'm going to ask you, can you tell me at what part of this budget request would better support law enforcement?
Oh, Congressman, quite a number of parts. The additional personnel request, the funding for additional law enforcement personnel in the Department of Homeland Security.
Do you know that in HR2 that there was money in there for additional law enforcement?
In addition, Congressman, the grant funds that we are seeking to distribute to state and local law enforcement through the Homeland Security Grant Program, the Urban Area Security Initiative, and other programs.
So everything that you just mentioned was part of HR2? So it seems like you do know what you agree with in that legislation. And to my point, that is exactly where we should start. So I urge my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, let's work on this as Americans. HR2 is our starting point. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.